Hello, Facebook land. A very magical Monday to all of you. I'm coming to you drinking my cup of coffee because it is so chilly outside today, and I'm really doing anything I possibly can to stay warm so I don't go huddle in a blanket. Wow, last week's video, if you joined me, was me coming to you in a very vulnerable state and talking about tools that I use to get through a process, and we just need to move through our energy. And I found what happened last week is I was moving through these energies and started to bring awareness to what was going on and why I was moving through this, is that I had a huge awareness around my boundaries. So today's video is going to be all around our boundaries. So I ask you, do you have healthy boundaries set in place that feel good to you and that are working? Now, many of my private clients that I work with and following people on Facebook and even myself, we find that we have boundaries and then we find that they're not working, and then we find our energy or our physical space is almost impeded on, and we get that sensation or feeling of, oh my goodness, what broke down in this process? So boundaries are there for a reason. They're healthy. First of all, we need that space for growth, for healing, for quiet time. We teach our children boundaries with strangers, with other grown-ups, whether it be a hug or not a hug. We teach our children boundaries with ourselves. You know, a no means a no, or if mom's in the bathroom and the door is shut, it's mom time. And so why as women do we find that our boundaries are so thin that people can literally weave in, push through, and then before we know it, bam, our boundaries have been broken? Well, I find a lot of it comes back to giving yourself permission to set these boundaries. And then the second part I find is that actually us, the person, you, myself, standing in them and being very clear with them. So maybe you've got boundaries and maybe you're like, oh, Heather, you are so speaking to me today. Maybe you've got boundaries set and you find out that, wow, these really aren't working for me. Or maybe you find that these boundaries keep being broken. Like, for instance, maybe it's a boundary that gets broken with your personal items. Maybe you have a personal laptop and you've asked maybe your partner or your child, please do not get on my laptop, and you find them on your laptop. Maybe it's more of a boundary. Maybe it's a boundary with your partner where you expect a different behavior. Maybe you expect different outcomes. Maybe you expect a different way they speak to you. Maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe it's a physical, maybe it's spiritual, maybe it's sexual, whatever it may be. Boundaries are so important to have. And so I found as I was going through my process last week, and a deep awareness came to me over this process and today, that holy cow, I've been so used to my boundaries being broken that I almost accept it for normal. And then I wonder why everything is falling apart. I know many of you can relate to this because I follow you on Facebook, or I work with you privately, or you're taking hooping classes with me and conversations come up that your boundaries are just being broken. So let's go through a few steps and let's talk about this a little bit more. About our boundaries. So the first thing really that needs to happen is that you need to give yourself permission that you are enough to set boundaries. Once you give yourself that permission and you know that you are enough, you are that empowered woman or empowered man standing in your power, that you are a person, are enough to have boundaries, and you accept that, then we can move forth from there. The second part is being very clear about what it is that you want to set your boundary around. And when I mean very clear, I mean, let's be specific. Let's gain real clarity on what it is you're looking for. Is it physical, spiritual? Is it space with your children? Is it boundaries with your partner? You've got to be really specific. So for instance, very simple boundary. My personal laptop is my personal laptop. It is off limits to every person in the house unless they ask my permission. If the boundary's broken, of course, then now we have to have a different conversation about respect and about boundaries. So there's something very simple. And it can get even more complex where you're talking about your intimate partner that you're with and creating those boundaries that are necessary for you for healing, for growth, and for space. So first of all, give yourself permission that you are enough, that you can create these boundaries. Second of all, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through a walk, whether it's through writing, get really clear about those boundaries that you would like to set. Third of all, then you actually need to vocally speak them. Now, here's the key. You're speaking from your truth, from love. However, you are going to be very firm that these boundaries that you are placing, you are going to keep. So whether it is a child you're speaking to, a coworker, your partner, a friend, whatever it may be, you're going to speak it from love and heart space, of course, but you're going to be firm. And you don't have to give an explanation for your boundaries because really it's nobody's business. You as a person, as your right, have these boundaries put in place for whatever purpose it means for you to be healthy, to be able to have space, whatever. Let's move on from there. So the fourth thing is no attachment to the outcome of how the person is going to respond or react to you. And if you've been following me, we've already talked about responding and reacting. And so you've gotten a little bit of heads up on this. So no attachment to the outcome of how this person is going to respond or react to you. And you know what? It doesn't matter because you now are standing firm in that boundary. You have gotten clear, you have verbalized it, and now you're stating. Here comes the fifth part, and this one can be tricky. You yourself now need to stand in that boundary 100% and not let that person break it, come through, waver, wiggle, crawl under, go over, whatever it be. That boundary now has been set. And now you, as that empowered woman, that empowered man, need to stand within that and hold that firmly and always create it with that person, whichever situation it may be. And that fifth one is the one that most of us have a huge, huge challenge with because it's uncomfy. It doesn't feel right at first because we haven't had that boundary. People have been breaking it. And then when we set it, we're like, oh my gosh, really? Did I just say that? Am I really doing this? Do I really have to stand in my power? And do I really have to hold tight and true to this boundary? Yes, you do, because it's healthy for you. It's healthy for you to have this boundary in place so you can grow and become the person that you're truly meant to be. So, my learning processes always seem to come up through this, and it's how I share things with you on a weekly basis. Like I've said before, I don't sit down and think about things and write and say, ooh, what am I talking about this week? It literally comes to me from guidance and what I may be going through in my life and my daily struggles, and boundaries is like a huge one that just came up with me. So keep this video, walk through those steps. You know, giving yourself permission is the first one. Gaining clarity around what it is you want to set boundaries with is the second one. The third one is actually speaking that boundary to the person. The fourth one is no attachment at all to the response or the reaction you get from that person. And then the fifth one is holding true and strong to that boundary and always staying true to it. And I'll tell you something, when you set these boundaries, whether it be a coworker, whether it be your children, whether it be your partner, you know, sometimes a little bit of temper tantrum happens because they're just not used to that boundary. They're used to being able to kind of push right through and do whatever they want. So hold strong, hold true, speak from your heart space, speak from your truth on what is healthy for you, and you can never go wrong with setting healthy boundaries. Have a most beautiful, 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 magical Monday. From my heart to yours, namaste.